my beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and today we're talking about a brand new eyeshadow palette from NARS Cosmetics. This is the Skin Deep palette. The palette is priced at $59 US. It is currently available at both Ulta and Sephora, as well as the NARS website. Currently, Sephora has the palette listed as online only, but I have a feeling it will be in store soon because I purchased my palette in store at Ulta. However, I did have to ask for it. It was not already out on the NARS display, and when the Ulta employee gave me the palette, she had to go to the back to get it, obviously, and she told me that they only had 4 of the palettes in store. I don't know if they're just now trickling out or if they're pretty limited in stores across the country, but either way, if you go to Ulta and you don't see this palette out on display, it's worth asking. They may just not have them out yet. I thought the outer packaging for this palette was really quite beautiful. It has this bronzy metallic sort of ombre. There is a small picture of the inside of the palette on the back, so you can see what the palette looks like without having to open up the box. I wish that the palette itself had that same cool bronzy metallic ombre on the front. It's just the classic NARS Soft Touch matte black packaging, and then it has the NARS logo in a metallic coppery type of color. As is typical for NARS palettes, this does have a locking clasp closure and not a magnetic closure, and it is a beast to open. I don't know what it is about NARS palettes, but they're always such a struggle to open. Taking a look inside, there is a nice big mirror here. We have 12 eyeshadow shades, no brush or applicator of any kind in here. The top 4 shades are mattes, and as you can see, they are larger than the standard eyeshadow pans down here. At first I found this a little aesthetically off-putting. I just like the nice balanced look of even-sized pans, but these powders are meant to be multi-use, so you can use them as a brow powder. I'm sure that a lot of people could get some great face powder uses out of these for bronzing or contouring or even setting. Personally, I think they're just a little bit too pigmented, and the 3 shades on the end are just too deep and not really what I feel is going to work for my makeup preferences. But I see the value in that. I think it's a cool idea. I just don't think that's how those powders are gonna work for me. Of the 12 eyeshadows in here, 6 are matte and 6 are shimmers. I love a nice balanced palette like that. I do wanna mention that 4 of these shades are not new colors. 3 of the matte shadows in here, this one called Sophia, this one over here called Bali, and then the super dark brown called Coconut Grove, are all permanent and available as singles from NARS. And this pale gold shimmer shade called Icon was available in the limited edition Atomic Blonde palette. Now let's get into some swatches. I will be swatching all of these eyeshadows on the back of my hand with no primer down first. I'll do finger swatches on top and then corresponding brush swatches below. I'll be using my e.l.f. flat eyeshadow brush for the brush swatches, and I'll clean the brush off in between each shade using my Vera Mona color switch. Here's the very top row of the palette, so those large matte eyeshadow pans. First we have a cream colored shadow. Doesn't show up super well just because it's close to my skin tone. This one's called Taunt. Next is a pretty neutral undertoned medium brown. This one is Sophia. A slightly darker and warmer brown called Whipped, and a very cool toned medium brown shade. This is almost a grayish brown called Undressed. Moving on to the middle row of the palette, we see a very neutral gray. This is a matte shade and it's called Bali. Next is a pale warm gold. This is Icon. A neutral shimmering pink. This one is Basic Instinct. And lastly, Coconut Grove, which is a very deep, cool-toned brown matte. On to the very last row of the palette, all of these shades are shimmers. And you can see for the most part, 3 out of the 4 apply really, really well with just a dry, flat brush. This one on the end struggles a little bit. I would recommend using your finger for this shade. but these three just really surprised me with how intense they pick up with a brush. First, we have a cool toned silvery taupe called Centerfold, an antique brass shimmer. This one is Calendar Girl. Next, a very subtle rusty red. This one is called Faster Pussycat. And lastly, Unbuttoned, which is more of a satiny shimmer, not these super metallic type of finishes. And this one is a very dark neutral brown. Now that you've seen all the swatches, let's jump into a quick tutorial using the Skin Deep palette, and then I'll wrap up all my thoughts at the end. I'm starting off just like I always do with my MAC paint pot in the shade Painterly to prime my lids. Then I'm gonna set that eye base using this shade called Taunt from the Skin Deep palette so that we have a nice smooth surface to work on. For my crease shade, I'll be mixing two colors from the Skin Deep palette to serve as my transition. I mixed a little bit of Sophia and Undressed and then used my favorite ColourPop brush to blend that into the crease. Next, I'm going to start to build up a little bit of depth on the outer part of my eye. I used the shade Unbuttoned, and I first started applying that with a brush, but I just found that it applied and blended better with the fingertip. Next, I'm taking Calendar Girl, and again, I'm just going to use my finger to apply this super metallic, shiny, brassy, beautiful shade all over my lid. Then I'm going to go back in with the shade Icon and dab just a little bit of that on top in the center to brighten it up. With no extra product, I did a little blending in the crease. Then I started working on the lower lash line, taking the shade Undressed and just smoking that out all along the lower lashes. For my inner corner, I'm going to combine two shades. First, I took Basic Instinct and built that up a little bit. Then for a brighter pop, I used Centerfold and just put that right on top, right in that inner corner area. For the very last step, I used Coconut Grove on a very small flat detail brush and swept that along my lashes as a sort of faux liner. Then I curled my lashes and added some of my NARS Climax mascara. And that's my finished look. I love how this turned out. I know it's really simple, but these are the kind of eye looks that I go back to over and over again. They're appropriate for every occasion, and I'm just always happy with them. I have to say, this palette really surprised me. I'm not at all surprised by the great quality. I love my NARS products, and I almost always love their eyeshadow palettes, so I'm not surprised by the great performance here. What I am surprised by is how incredibly neutral these undertones are. For the past few years, we have just been inundated with really, really warm neutral palettes. It's been all gold and orange and toasty brown type of shades, which I love those kind of colors, and I think a lot of people do, which is why those palettes are so popular. So for anyone to release a neutral nude palette, it's really hard to do something different with such a basic collection of shades here. I was not expecting any surprises, and I have to say I was surprised by how neutral and cool leaning this palette is. Now, make no mistakes, I know there are a couple of warm toned shades in here. Even this warmer brown and this rusty red, they're very subtly warm. There's not any in-your-face orangey type of colors going on here. This is very, very neutral undertoned, lots of cool tone neutrals in here, and I think this is a smart play by NARS. This is the kind of palette that's going to be a staple for a lot of people. There are tons of people out there, obviously not me. You can see a tiny fraction of my palette collection behind me here. There are lots of people in this world who just want one or two eyeshadow palettes. They really want to wear everyday type of work appropriate. I put that in quotes because what's everyday and work appropriate for one person isn't really the same thing for another. But just to give you a general idea, there are a lot of people out there that want straightforward, just nude neutral looks, and they don't want to wear orange eyeshadow. We makeup lovers are so used to seeing these super warm orangey type of nude palettes that we sort of have it in our heads now that orange is a warm neutral. But for a lot of people out there, orange eyeshadow is definitely not a neutral. It's not something that they want to wear, that they find flattering or appropriate for their day-to-day. So this palette is the answer to that. Other than the fact that this is very neutral / cool toned, which I actually really like, this sets itself apart from the other nude palettes in my collection personally. I love the idea of these multi-use powders. I'm not big on powders in my brows just because I have pretty full brows and powder gets in there and it's not my look. But I love the idea of these as multi-use powders. This is brilliant. I think this is going to be great for makeup artists. Love the performance of pretty much all of these shades. This very bottom one in the corner was not great with a brush, but it's super intense when it's applied with a finger, so there's a lot of wiggle room in there if you want it to be more sheer or more deep. Particularly these two shades down here, Centerfold and Calendar Girl. I love the way these perform. They're so smooth, they just look perfect. So happy with the performance here. Definitely all around, I would recommend this palette. If you're one of those people out there, I know you're out there, who have been craving actual neutral undertones, actual cool tones, this is it. Your palette has arrived and it's limited edition, so go get you one. Now's the time when I want to hear what you think about this palette. Are you feeling these neutral, cool undertones? Are you just over all neutral palettes in general? What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Usually I'm such a warm tone girl, but I'm feeling wintry. Just cool and wintry, cool as ice. What are you talking about? Ma'am, have you lost your marbles? Weird or cool? Off to a rough start. Let's do this. Never say that again. Okay, great, good talk. Is this limited edition? Things you should know about before you make your video. Oh, huh? Should have worn that red with this sweater, but next time. What was that? I'm not at all surprised by the great. Okay, time to tighten up. Love the formula on this. Calm down. Okay. Only I could get excited about a completely neutral palette. Can't please everyone, you know? Don't I know it? I'm on the internet. Are you just over all palettes and all videos about palettes? Probably. I need a break. Okay. All right, I'm done for real this time.